family, I hope you die in prison as well.
You better hope I never get out of jail. If I go, you're white.
They are supposedly the halls in which order, discipline, and justice reign in courtrooms. However, how does it turn out in a case when emotions come first and the curse of chaos is held inside a courtroom? There are children who make faces against judges. There is the murderer claiming that he should be given the death sentence, and even assaults of the court officials, which show that life can sometimes be more dramatic than any kind of movie. Today in the video, we take you inside some of the hottest, jaw-dropping courtroom moments ever to be filmed. You won't believe, trust me, what these people did. Quincy Tuttle, the armed student. We start with Quincy Tuttle, who was a student in Vancouver, Washington, and who surprised everybody when he was discovered with a handgun, 400 rounds of ammo, and knives at his school, the Frontier Middle School. His motive? In order to protect a bully victim. However, this caused the decision of the judge not to release him to reach boiling point when Quincy lost his temper. No, it was nothing more than tears at first, but then he tore himself away and turned on his lawyer and broke toward the doors, flooding with oaths. Finally, Quincy was locked into 2 years of juvenile detention and compulsory anger management counseling sessions. Dajour Maurice Hall, the mouthy meltdown. Our second case is Dajour Maurice Hall, a resident of South Carolina, who is charged with an attempted murder and weapon possession in terms of firing his weapon at a nightclub and a house with children in it. Hall was remorseful upon being taken to court. In fact, he was on tirade using profane language. His rants were so obscene that policemen were needed to stop him. He refused to calm down, though he was being dragged out. The result? The judge refused to grant him bond, and that left Hall to think about his unchecked fool talk and deeds. Zachariah Kraft, the table-flipping rage. In Montana, Zachariah Kraft had been in court on the grounds of assaulting the peace officers. He was already charged with disorderly conduct, and on hearing his explanation of being charged with a felony, he went berserk. Kraft went round the bend quite literally. He yelled and struggled with officials and had to be restrained. His tantrum earned him more trouble. Though being a violent one, he was subsequently put into isolation in order not to inflict harm to himself or to others. Anger gets very deadly, and this was evidenced by his courtroom rage. Jonathan Sander, the cold-hearted murderer. It was quite creepy with the case of Jonathan Sander in Raleigh, North Carolina. Sander shot dead his neighbor and the neighbor along with her mother after arguing in the neighborhood. He was cold and as disruptive in the court, and when the aggrieved husband came out to testify against him, he mocked him as well. He even requested the death penalty himself, alleging that he is going to see justice done. The jury instead handed down a life sentence on him. The fact that he did not show any remorse, even when he was in the presence of his survivors, showed how terrifying and cold his coldness was. No, Sherry Lynn, the queen of the insults. Sherry Lynn, a resident of Miami, Florida, faced felony battery charge after stabbing a woman with pliers. She was questioned regarding her mental condition. In response, she insulted the judge in front of the court, telling him to go yourself. Amazingly, the judge did not get angry, but laughed at her activities. Lynn faced trial after being taken to a psychiatric hospital in order to be evaluated. Despite all her incessant verbal assaults, the fact is that her case demonstrated that even words can be sometimes as violent as the acts of violence. Anthony Matthews, fighting to never apologizing. Anthony Matthews was in Dayton, Ohio to answer traffic charges. He was brought into court where he fought with the courtroom deputies because he kept disrupting the judge. Then, a shouting match became a brawl with Matthews swinging his fists. Amazingly, the next day he came back with a swollen eye and offered a touching apology. The judge was merciful and instead put the man on probation and time served. His case was a very unusual one of law, court disorder, and then followed by true repentance. Deborah Redden, the judge attacker. Among the worst were the one that took place in Las Vegas in the District of Nevada, where Deborah Redden, who had been charged with battery, jumped over the bench and pounced on Judge Holthus. He pulled her down on the ground and proceeded to beat her. It took pools of employees to get him off. Fortunately, the judge did not suffer too much, but it was horrible to see such an attack. Redden subsequently appeared in court wearing boxing gloves, spit mask, and cuffs. he was sent another jail term following his aggression on the judge. Bampuman Teixeira, the killer with no conscience. Bampuman Teixeira was sentenced in Boston to brutally kill 2 doctors in a penthouse. His conduct in the court was more than alarming. He mocked the family of the victims and boasted threats and would keep muting. His brutal and merciless statements were only more torment to suffering members of his family. He was sentenced by the judge to 2 life terms without parole. Teixeira was one of the most hated defendants in living memory due to his lack of remorse. Kyle Rittenhouse, the scandalous trial. Probably one of the most well-known recent cases is that of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial in Wisconsin. He is only 17 and killed 3 men shooting at the racial justice protests in self-defense. His case got the media out of control. The evidence presented by the prosecution as he tried to prove him to be a scared teen defending himself failed miserably. So much so that the judge rebuked the prosecution team, saying they were disobeying the simple legal principles. The jury ruled that Rittenhouse could not be guilty after a passionate discussion. His breakdown of emotional state in court during the reading of the verdict is one of the most viral scenes in the courtroom in history. Elas Ortiz Nieves, rage after sentencing. Lastly, there is Elas Ortiz Nieves, who is accused of killing a 4-year-old kid whom he was sitting with. The police found records of abuse, broken ribs, and burns made by cigarettes. However, during sentencing, the judge's sentence sent Ortiz over the edge as he angrily yelled and engaged in fights with the deputies in the court. His gruesome deeds resulted in a life sentence. The case was later shocking to a greater extent when the mother of the child, too, was arrested on the count of perjury and the act of ignoring her own children. The case showed the disastrous effects of neglect and violence. Whether it is the loud shouting of expletives or the physical bashing of each other, these courtroom scenes are nothing but a cueing of the fact that justice is never a bed of roses. And behind them all a struggle of the emotions, anger, denial, pain, and here and there cold-hearted pride. Although judges seek to keep the order, such devastating cases show the extent to which human behavior can always be unpredictable. There are those defendants that plead for mercy, others would jovially drive at their victims, and some would even attempt to turn around stories with unbelievable lies. Justice was always asserted, however. This life sentence or the refusal to grant bonds, or just the burden of the truth to carry them all, prove that no one can go scot-free in their accountability. Whenever you feel like courtrooms are actually dull, then just keep in mind these moments, because they can show that reality could be way crazier than fiction.